What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? Sunday afternoon. Watched way too much preseason football. But the good thing is I realized, well, why don't we just talk about all the rookie quarterbacks? At least the guys drafted in the top 15. What I saw, the good, there wasn't that much bad. It was a pretty eye-opening experience, most of these top guys, that it's hard not to be really excited. I mean, from Caleb to Sunday this morning watching Bo Nix play. So what I'll do is I'll go one by one. I went back. I watched some of these guys live. I wasn't taking notes or anything, so I went back about an hour ago. Best part about the internet, I don't even know if this would have been possible 10 years ago, let alone maybe 5, is right after the game, you can watch every snap. Boom. Just type into YouTube, this great app/website that you guys are all watching me on. Any player you want to see. I don't know about any player, but definitely the quarterbacks. And you can watch all their snaps. So I did that and have some thoughts and some takeaways from it. So we'll dive in and a couple other things that I noticed from preseason that got me excited because I'm not breaking down every game. I mean, it's impossible to. The guys coming in and out of the lineup, it's hard to keep track of what's going on unless you follow, each team really, really closely because there are so many moving parts. But one thing we can do pretty easily is watch the top rookies. Some of them are going to start, some of them are going to be backups. But listen, it's a big deal for those guys because the first time that they've ever played, in an NFL game. Granted, it's preseason, but it's still exciting. So we'll dive into that off the top. Before we dive into some football, though, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time. I actually, was it Friday night or Thursday night? I started seeing it on Instagram. I'm like, I know a bunch of people that are in Vegas right now. What are they doing in Vegas? And then I start texting them. They're like, we're at Allegiant Stadium. We're at the Morgan Wallen concert. One's like, I use your promo code. And then I see Morgan Wallen come out, as he does, at all his concerts with someone famous. Came out with Kelsey and Mahomes and Chris Jones when he did Kansas City. In Vegas, he came out with Tom Brady and Mike Tyson. I'm like, that. What a crew to roll out with. Now, if you want to go see a concert, I've seen Morgan a couple times. He's entertaining. No matter who you want to see, they got you covered. Obviously, football games, any World Series or playoff baseball games coming up here, in October or late September. Cannot recommend them enough. So my friends at Game Time make buying tickets easy. Take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN, John, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I think an overall theme of this quarterback class, to me, that jumped out, watching all these rookies really from Thursday and Friday on, was athleticism meets arm strength. We saw a couple years ago, just because a bunch of guys get drafted high does not mean they're going to be good, right? Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, all on different teams going into their fourth season, all on different teams. And the highest draft pick that any of them got traded for was Trey Lance because the Cowboys, one, Jerry's a little crazy, and two, they got 2 years of him on his rookie contract, and he's the third-string quarterback. So just because you're drafted high, we've seen forever in football, it does not mean you're going to be good. For every time there's an Andrew Luck or a Peyton Manning that immediately starts and is good, I guess Peyton wasn't immediately, but you know what I mean? There are a lot of guys that are disasters, and it's just a train wreck. And then we see all the time guys drafted after the first round, in the third round, in the fourth round, the Cousins, the Russell Wilsons, the Dak Prescotts. A couple years ago, we saw Brock Purdy, last pick in the draft, become a starter who's winning playoff games. So you never know until the true live bullets start flying. But this matters for building confidence and really evaluating your skills, right? How do you move? How's your arm strength? How's your accuracy? Do you feel overwhelmed? And I watching this class, and obviously this class, based on resume alone, was dramatically better than the class that I mentioned that all failed. But they got a chance to be pretty impressive. I mean, they really do. Obviously, there's a headliner, right? You can go to the best concert ever. There's still an opening act. There's still an act playing, like when you show up at 4 o'clock when the place has got a quarter, of the people in the venue. Doesn't mean they're not good. And it doesn't mean one day they won't be headlining. So clearly, the headliner is Caleb Williams. And as we talked about last week, this building hype on Jayden Daniels, like in a different class, he would be a headliner of his own. And then there's a bunch of other guys that are hard not to be excited about. So I'm not trying to overreact, but watching these guys, it's hard not to be bullish on the group. Not saying 3 of the 6 of them are going to the Hall of Fame, but they all got skills that translate to playing in the NFL. Now, the thing that we will not be able to know until the games start is how you handle game plans, right? When you go into a specific team and they have game plan looks, and then the longer you play, they pick your weaknesses and they force you into those weaknesses. That's not happening right now. Most of these teams are just, even if they're running blitzes or different looks, it's just stuff that they want to be comfortable doing, not because they think you're going to struggle with it. Maybe there's a coach here or there that's like truly doing some sneaky game planning. But for the most part, especially this first preseason game, it's much more focused on all the stuff we've installed in spring and these first, I don't know, however many days training camp has been going. Can my guys, the second and third stringers, handle that information and then execute that information? And then when shit goes wrong, figure it out on the fly. So it's basically you're judging more on the skill set than like how you are against different defenses. Obviously, like I said, the headliner, Caleb Williams, there was no disputing coming into the league the skill set he had. Like I would say his only knock, I'd say he had 2 knocks. Hero ball was one, but it's like, guys, Lincoln Riley did one of the worst coaching jobs in roster building you'll ever see last year. That team that he rolled out was an embarrassment. And that offensive line for a school like USC, they should be ashamed. And trust me, they were. It's why Colin brings up a lot. They've had rumblings like, is he on the hot seat? And listen, he's not on the hot seat because they're giving him $120 million. But you keep winning 7 games when you got guys like Caleb Williams. Like, we got a fucking problem. There's no way around it. And part of the reason the dude was running around for his life is because they couldn't block a soul. I mean, they were atrocious. So he felt extra pressure to try to make a bunch of stuff happen. And he actually has the skill set to do that. When you watched him in the game yesterday, his arm strength is, elite. It is top-notch NFL level. And when you have a top-notch, and listen, a lot of people push back like arm strength's not everything. And that's true. But when you are a good player and you have a great arm, like the sky's the limit. Patrick Mahomes, Brett Favre, Tom Brady had a big-time arm, right? So that translates the other thing to inclement weather. Well, where does he play? The Windy City. Last time I checked, it can be awful weather late in the year in Chicago. Also, who's going to be one of his big rivalries? Green Bay. Last time I checked, pretty cold there in November and December. So his arm strength is pretty special. His playmaking ability, and when I say playmaking, I don't necessarily mean running down the field, though he can run. I mean running behind the line of scrimmage to throw. That's what, obviously, Patrick Mahomes early on in his career was his biggest wow. What Josh Allen has turned into holy hell. Justin Herbert had a throw either last year or a couple years ago that I think Daniel Jeremiah said the best throw he's ever seen in person. Throwing on the move, whether that's bombs or 15 to 20 yards to first down on third down. It's what Russell Wilson in his heyday did all the time. Scramble to throw. That means move out of the pocket, keep your eyes up to make a play. And sometimes you do that. The play that he threw to Komet, which is just elite NFL stuff, clearly the first read on that play was not there and there was someone in his face. So he kind of had to ad-lib. And when you have to ad-lib, it's the knock on guys like Cousins and Goff. Like, they don't have that capability because they can't move. Rodgers built a Hall of Fame career off moving right and moving left and making elite throws. And the throw that he made to Komet was just, I was watching on the couch live. It was jaw-dropping. It really was. But, like, I got news for you. We kind of knew he had that. So it's not really shocking. It's eye-opening because it's NFL and he's wearing a Bears jersey, not USC or Oklahoma. but I've seen him do that before. So I would expect him to have those capabilities. But part of being a playmaker isn't just throwing 100-mile-an-hour strikes. It's also doing what he did on the little dump off, like almost like a little layup or a push shot in the NBA to DeAndre Swift that led to a huge gain. And one thing we don't talk about enough when we discuss quarterbacks, like we do this all the time with DBs, instincts. Like, do you have the instincts to feel the ball when you're not looking? Because the wide receivers looking back at the quarterback and the ball, you are chasing him. And ideally, you turn your head around at the last second, either to make a pick or to break up the ball. I was actually in the car on Saturday driving to the golf course, and I had on Sirius and I was flipping the channels, and Dan Patrick, they were just replaying interviews, and he had on JJ Watt. And, Dan, great interview, they're bullshitting. And JJ's like, the position that I have the most respect for in football and is the hardest to play is defensive back. Because one, you need to have elite athleticism, and two, these like God-given instincts. Maybe you've built in your younger career, but you don't develop them once you get to the pros. I think there's an element to that with playing quarterback. It's why a lot of guys get overwhelmed, right? Because their quarterback instincts aren't natural. And there's something when you watch Caleb play, you're like, God, he's kind of born to do this. And he's not the tallest guy, so ad-libbing is going to be part of his game. I mean, he can throw within the pocket, no problem, and he did. I think his first throw of the game, or maybe it was a third down throw on the first series, just was a strike from within the pocket. But, like, he's going to make a lot of plays moving around, and he's pretty natural at it, and that's going to be a huge plus. Like, obviously, I can imagine the overreaction in Chicago, but here's a fact. This guy, like, the jump they're going to have from the last couple years to this guy when it comes to throwing the football is Grand Canyon wide gap. It really is. And it's not hard to be really excited. And then there are little things like when he's scrambling for a first down, they showed it on Hard Knocks. They got the slip and slide out, and he slid. Like, it's kind of going to be important because he's going to have the chance probably every game, 2 or 3 times, 3rd and 8, 2nd and 9, scramble, get a first down. But when you're not able to get out of bounds and it's inside the numbers, there are going to be defenders around there. And let's face it, this isn't Greg Williams bounties, but defenders are never able to hit quarterbacks, ever. Beside preseason games where a lot of starters don't play. So it's only the regular season. And because of the hype around this guy, I don't care what business you're in. When there's a young guy with a bunch of hype, there's resentment. There's people coming after you. That's part of the deal. And people are going to be out to hit this guy and hit him hard. So especially because, I mean, if you hit this guy and KO him out of the game, look at their backup quarterbacks. Pretty sure the dude went to Shepherd College. So you got to get down. These guys are going to be gunning for you. And he slid. And that's going to be something like they joked about it in the Hard Knocks, but that's going to be important because I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that if they do a good enough job building around this guy the next 2 or 3 years, I mean, their team's pretty good right now, but like truly nail some stuff, like this can be a Super Bowl contender. Like he has that type physical gifts, right? And he's much more ready to play. And I'm not saying he's going to become Patrick Mahomes. He's got a long way to go. And I saw they asked him his quarterbacks, and he didn't even name Mahomes as one of the best 2 quarterbacks. So Shady McCoy was saying there's something there. I don't know. But like this guy's he's oozing with ability. I mean, it's eye-opening to watch. So Chicago fans, be excited because you should be. Now, I would temper it this year. I saw, some people are picking up I still think 10 wins is probably a little bit of a stretch, but I don't know. I mean, you get a guy with this much. Look at Andrew Luck, his rookie season. What he did to, the Colts. Got him in the playoffs. Had him in the first round of the playoffs. Throw another shrimp on the Barbie. Get on all the UFC 305 action live from the land down under at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. The middleweight title's on the line for the main event, but the card is stacked full of rip snorter blokes and shellas. And speaking of stacked, if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers get $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. UFC 305. It's going to be a ripper of a good time. only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Jayden Daniels. We talked about this earlier last week. The hype on this guy is growing by the day. It is. I don't remember. I guess Joe Burrow, probably since Joe Burrow, such a quick rise to a status, right? And Burrow did it. Now Burrow accomplished more in college in the sense of his team won the whole thing, and they really kind of beat the crap out of everyone. Jayden had a national championship level offense. His defense was a joke, and Brian Kelly had to fire him. But I get nervous sometimes. Like if you watch Caleb last year, I don't even know who he's really playing with. Jerry Rice's kid, who's like a mid-round guy, who's going to be like a fourth or fifth wide receiver for the Chargers. Jayden's playing with Malik Neighbors, who, if he stays healthy, is going to be a star in the NFL. Playing with another wide receiver gets drafted in the top 25 of the NFL draft. And you're just like, sometimes we've seen that happen to Mac Jones, right? Gets the start for the year, boom. And it was like, obviously, Jayden has a lot more talent than Mac Jones. But the one thing you saw in college, whether it's Malik Neighbors or me or you, his deep ball accuracy is elite. Like he puts it right on guys' hands on that go route. And he did it in this game. Just right on the guy's hands while he's being draped by a corner. So that ability to push the ball down the field accurately is something really, really important. Because I think a lot of quarterbacks, whether they have a good arm or an average arm, regardless, just it's a lower percentage throw. So they are much more inclined, like, should I try to fit this in? I don't hit this 50% of the time. I'll take the check down or whatever. Well, his confidence level on that throw is really high because he's been hitting it pretty consistently now. He hit it in this game, in the preseason game, but he hit it all last year. So in his mind, he thinks he's completing that ball. And most of the time, it is hitting the guy, not like where he has to go up and high point. He's like hitting the guy in stride. So it's a weapon. It's a major weapon. Now, the one thing you see when you watch him play is he's thin. He looks really thin out there. But his accuracy, his poise, he scored an easy running touchdown. That's going to translate. But back to Caleb, and we've talked about this just over and over when it comes to Jayden. The question's going to be in these regular season games, when he scrambles and can't get out of bounds, can he slide? Can he avoid hits? Because we'll get to JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy tried to take on a couple defenders. Like that cannot happen. We're not trying to prove toughness here. If you're playing in the NFL, we assume you're going to be tough, and you don't need to prove it by trying to run over defenders at the quarterback position. Because your clavicle breaks, you bruise an elbow or break a hand, you get concussed, you are a problem for your team. Your liability is you running and not being able to avoid contact. Because the NFL has protected you as long as you slide. But if you do not, because even if that penalty happens, who gives a shit if you're in the blue tent? So that's just something that he has to be very conscious of, because they're going to run him, as they should. Now, he had a walk-in touchdown, but they're going to have running plays where it's not in the red zone. But from a passing standpoint, I wouldn't put his physical gifts quite with Caleb, but holy moly, he's a very, very intriguing player. And I've been saying this over and over. If you tell me right now, like he's competing to be the offensive rookie of the year, yeah, this team can win 8-9 games. It's just that simple. A long way to go. I'm not acting, I wouldn't put my money on that yet, but he definitely has the physical capabilities to do it. I truly, though, think that questioning, like, will he slide, which we won't really know till the bullets are flying come September, because he will get injured. He just look at his body frame. I mean, even when you watch Caleb, while he's shorter, he just feels much thicker. And that's a big deal. Like Kyler has that. Kyler's built like a little tank. Russell had that when he got kind of fatter in Denver. But I'm talking about peak Russell. Early on, Russell was just kind of a little chiseled guy. And, Jayden looks like what I dream about being. Just slim, just thin. Drake Maye, honestly, not even sure what to say. He had 3 pass attempts. Hard to even judge him. They played Bailey Zappi a lot. And I was thinking maybe Drake Maye made the team. Jacoby's making the team. They seem pretty high on Joe Milton from Tennessee. Maybe what they're hoping to do is make Bailey Zappi look decent in preseason. Someone has an injury, and maybe you can trade him for like a seventh round pick for the team that needs a backup. But I don't quite understand not playing him more. I don't know. I went back to watch the plays, and I saw that he played three snaps, or I mean three pass attempts. So I don't know what to say there. Listen. I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy. I don't know Belichick, so I'm not up here trying to cover up for everything that happened with him over the last couple of years. But I don't know anyone in the NFL who is not shorting this franchise right now. And it's not because Brandon Ayuk didn't want to go there. Of course, Brandon Ayuk didn't want to go there. The team sucks. So even if he got, a ton of money, his production would be terrible. Everyone would talk shit. It would be a disaster. I don't even judge him for that, right? Like part of the reason that they weren't just randomly getting guys to take discounts forever. It was because of Tom Brady and winning Super Bowls. So when you suck, people are less inclined to go there if they have options. Now, technically, you could argue Brandon Ayuk doesn't have that many options because the 49ers only agreed to trade him two places. He said no to both, but I'm not as critical of that. He's from Reno, Sacramento, played at ASU. I wouldn't want to play in New England either. Michael Penix. I think we can do two things. One, go glass half full, and one, go glass half empty on just the overall situation. I will reiterate what I said. It doesn't make sense to draft him if you plan on having Cousins be your quarterback for the next 2 or 3 years. He's a 24-year-old ready-made player. Doesn't mean he's going to be perfect, but he's ready to start right now. He is not a guy that, this isn't JJ McCarthy. This isn't Drake Maye, who just is some project. Mahomes years ago, Jordan Love, there are projects. Dude, like if they had to start right away, you never know with Mahomes. I doubt he would have been that bad. But Jordan Love clearly needed some time, needed some work. Drake Maye, everyone viewed like ideally just give the guy a year. Penix is ready to roll. I mean, he's been in college for 6 years. His game immediately translates. So it doesn't make sense to me the way it all played out. I think if you could have a redo of everything, the Raiders would have signed Kirk Cousins. The Falcons would have signed Christian Wilkins. And the Raiders would now have a quarterback. Michael Penix would now be their starter with an improved defensive line. But that's not the way it happened. So if you wanted to go glass half full and just live in the short term, you could argue they have, if not the best backup quarterback, one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. There is probably not a backup quarterback. I watched a lot of preseason, like who I would take over Michael Penix. So that's a good spot to be in. The problem is it's not like Cousins under a 1-year contract. It could get complicated, and it could get complicated fast. If Penix ends up playing, that means Cousins either got injured or he's not playing well, and then his contract is not easy to trade. You could argue it's always somewhat easy to trade because teams need quarterbacks. But let's just live in the present because he's not going to be the starter. Kirk Cousins is. I watch Michael Penix, and to me, he looks exactly like the guy he did at Washington. Unlike Jayden and Caleb, who use their athleticism more, who kind of like to scramble, like to move, Penix, while his 40 time at the combine was excellent, he's really more like, plays like a Jared Goff, plays like a true pocket quarterback. And he wants to sit in there. He wants to go 1, 2 to 3 and just fucking get rid of the ball. He missed a couple passes, which I was watching on mute, so I don't even know who was in the game, how much timing and rhythm. Like I'm not judging him on like overthrowing a sideline route, which he has proven time and time again to be accurate with. But to me, like I think what he does well, throw within the pocket, get rid of the ball fast. He's got a good arm. He's accurate. He's a very rhythm-based guy. Like once he gets a couple completions, you just feel him rolling because he's not looking to scramble around. He wants to sit there 3, 4 wide, let me pick you apart. And there were some throws like this is what the kid looked like in Washington. And the thing that pisses me off because I like him so much as a player, I just wish he could start. I just wish he could play. But he can't because Kirk Cousins, they gave him all that money. But yeah, man, he's just a very comfortable guy sitting in the pocket. And some of these scramblers, just naturally, if you're Jayden or Caleb, like if something's not there right away, I'm kind of looking to move because I'm so comfortable throwing on the move. That's just not Penix's deal. Like he wants to sit there and he wants to find an open guy and get rid of the ball within that little 2-3 yard radius of his tackles. That's the way he plays. And he's really kind of old school. Like you don't see that many quarterbacks. I mean, look at all these guys. Caleb mover, Jayden mover, JJ McCarthy can move around. Bo Nix, obviously an athletic move around guy. That's just not Penix's deal despite the times. So, like, I don't nitpick guys in the first preseason action for a missed throw, an airmail. It's like, is this what it's supposed to look like? Are you calm? Do you have a good pocket presence? Like, obviously, if a guy's wide open, can you hit him? Like the first throw, I think, from Jayden was a screen pass, and he just airmailed him. It's like, yeah, it's his first ever time playing an NFL game. He's amped up. It's like a golfer. You actually got to be calm, but you got to balance like being excited, but being under control. So it's like, yeah, it happens. Like, what am I supposed to do? Negative? I'm not running the quarterback meeting. It's like, yeah, I like what I see. I mean, it's on the coaches to figure this thing out. And like I said, I think if Cousins struggles, gets injured, they will be able to be like, see what we did? We had this guy backing him up. I would say, yeah, see that all that money you invest in the guy? You could have just gone with this guy who no one was going to draft in the top 8 beside you, which I'll give you credit for, and utilize that money other spots. I don't know, on your defensive line, which doesn't scare a soul. So I'd be excited. The guy can sling it. And there's something just puts you at ease watching a lefty who can just throw darts. I just like Michael Penix. I have a lot of friends in the NFL that have Super Bowl rings that are on playoff level teams that aren't that big of fans. Maybe I'm biased because I've watched him play so much the last couple of years, but I saw nothing in his preseason action that would make me change my approach. Thinking, I don't know if he's best case scenario. Like I don't see him being a top 5 quarterback. But I saw Kirk Cousins become a guy who became really good in the NFL. Saw Jared Goff become a guy who became really good in the NFL. Dak Prescott. All these guys' games are a little different than each other. But let's just use Cousins and Goff, who are pocket quarterbacks. Well, this guy has more athleticism than them and is just as comfortable throwing the football. So if Jared Goff can be a high-level player in the NFL, Michael Penix can too. I need to tell you about my friends at Mando. This Mando deodorant, the Mount Fuji, I've been using it every day for the last month. I go to the gym in the morning. I'm a sweater. No one wants to smell the rest of the day. Bad body odor, biggest turnoff in America. Well, here's the key. Put a little of this on, you're taken care of. Here's my favorite, though. This invisible cream deodorant I use for my balls. You just put a little pea-size amount on your finger. Boom. I play a lot of golf. Summer in Arizona. It's like 120 degrees. You're sweating. No one wants to stink, especially down there. Boom. They also have these deodorant wipes. You can put them anywhere, under armpits, down low, on your arms. You want to be smelling good. They will take care of you. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash. I got one in the shower, deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off a starter pack. Use code JOHN, JOHN, at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO, shopmando.com. JJ McCarthy. I think the shitty thing about a spot like this is you have this team that is kind of going through a transition, right? But they're still like the GM and the head coach expect to win. So you sign Sam Darnold, who I didn't watch the game, but I saw on Twitter or whatever, people said he played well. Kevin O'Connell's already announced he's going to be the starter. It's like JJ's this big project. Well, to me, Drake Maye is a much bigger project than JJ McCarthy because the knock on JJ is that didn't have to do much. Well, yeah, the running game worked. I saw when he had to make big throws against a team called Alabama, down late in the game, he came through. And you watch this game, he threw a terrible pick. And like I said, with the missed throw, like, threw a pick in preseason. What am I supposed to do? Fucking cut the guy? It was awful. Can't do it. But the only way to get better, and this is what's hard once the regular season starts and you're not the starting quarterback, is through playing and through reps. And when you're the backup quarterback, you don't rep it out in practice. You run the scout team. typically. The team can, I guess, manipulate it a little bit with if now that they have the third string quarterback who's eligible, he can be on the practice squad. But still, your starting quarterback is getting the reps with the ones during practice. You don't have enough reps to go around. Michael Lombardi says this all the time. It's a math equation. You only have so much time to divvy up, and your starter's going to get it all. And early on in this season, let's face it, this team's going to try to be competitive. Now, I think when you watch this guy play, one, a lot is what you saw in Michigan. Athleticism, arm strength. Honestly, he showed some really good pocket presence, moving up in the pocket, throwing accurately. Like, clearly his first read wasn't open, getting some heat on the corners, kind of steps up, made a great throw. For a touchdown pass, guy was kind of wide open, but still, like, he's got the arm. There was a reason Harbaugh loved this guy 3 years ago when he showed up at campus. There is a lot to work with there. And I think if I was a Vikings fan, I always kind of hate, like, at the time they drafted Mahomes and he was going to redshirt the year, Alex had been there a long time. Like, he was an entrenched player. So even if you thought he was flawed, at least if you were a Chiefs fan, like, listen, we've been winning double-digit games. This guy's been leading us to the playoffs. We were a joke before him and Andy showed up. I respect them. I do understand if you're a Vikings fan, like, Sam Darnold. And listen, even if you are bullish on Sam Darnold, it's like, I got to watch a one-year bridge quarterback. Can't we just start this guy? It's never been easier in the sense of your quarterback is more protected than ever. Your wide receivers are more protected than ever. So if he doesn't know the playbook or something like that, I get it, not throwing him out to the wolves. But I've never heard that football acumen and understanding, in taking in knowledge and taking it to the field has ever been an issue with this guy. So you see enough. His athleticism on full display, a lot like the first two guys, throwing on the move, something he's very comfortable doing, just running around and keeping plays alive is something that he also is comfortable doing. I would imagine if you started him, he would probably throw some picks, clearly, maybe more than some of these other guys, because he's not used to just the offense. Like, okay, we're going to throw it 33 times this week for 3 straight weeks. It's not something that just the way he's had to play, but the strength of their team with, having the best wide receiver in the league. Jordan Addison, I'm sure, gets suspended, but when he comes back, I mean, that's a pretty damn good 1-2 combination. I don't know why you can't just ease him in, but they're not going to do that. And that's just, I don't know. I'm never a believer. Like, I get the Penix thing. The Penix thing is he's simply not playing because we gave another guy $100 million. I have a harder time when it's like, well, we gave this guy $10 million. And I'm bullish on Sam Darnold. I like Sam Darnold on my team, probably as a backup. But $10 million, like, you can't start over our first round quarterback. And listen, he's going to need work. You saw, I would say he made the worst throw of all these guys on the pick. I mean, hit the dude on the Raiders kind of in stride who undercut the route. But man, there's a lot to like. This is how calm he is. That's the other thing. Like, you watch Penix, he's just very calm sitting there. He's not, you can always tell a guy in the NFL in preseason, some of these younger guys who just get really fidgety. It definitely happens in the regular season when guys get injured and you got to bring in backup quarterbacks. They just freak out. And this is why we always say it's the hardest position in the world to play, because you got 4 dudes who now are all 250 to 350 pounds. All of them are athletes. They're all pretty good pass rushers. Some are elite pass rushers. Some of them are all-time pass rushers, trying to fuck you up. And the moment you start kind of, as Sam Darnold once say, seeing ghosts or question your confidence or feeling overwhelmed, I can't even imagine that feeling of looking, these guys are huge, and you freak out. And some guys just have the natural ability to not freak out and are very calm in the pocket. And maybe it's obviously a different level from the preseason to the regular season, but I'd say JJ McCarthy's debut was more than positive, even with an awful interception. Another guy whose debut was really eye-opening in a good way was Bo Nix, who I think we can confidently say Caleb's the starter, obviously. Jayden's the starter, obviously. Drake Maye backup. Penix backup because of Cousins. JJ backup because the organization wants to take it slow. Bo Nix, he's refused to kind of like, I mean, honestly, he had him like third on the depth chart. Some of the stuff Sean Payton's doing, little Parcellsian, old school, like, which is where Sean Payton got his start. I think that stuff's kind of stupid. Just name the starter and let's rock and roll. I give Eberflus a lot of credit because the moment OTA started, he's like, this guy's a starter. What's the point? Hit the ground running, pedal to the metal, let's go. And that's the way it should be with Bo Nix. And maybe it will be moving forward. Jared Stidham seems like a nice guy. Have no problem if he's on my roster, but he can't be my starter. And to me, the thing with Bo Nix, everyone questions like, oh, he just throws quick screens. He just throws quick screens. I think when you say that sometimes, especially forever in like the Mike Leach offense or whatever, or even Hawaii's offense, which were all these hybrid, spread it out, a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage, a lot of quick stuff around the I would say within the 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. It was easy. It's why a lot of quarterbacks that had below average arm strength and were never going to play in the NFL could dominate in college football. And then he played, I don't know if you'd consider that the Mike Leach offense, but in an offense that was very quarterback friendly. And it kind of hurt him. A lot of people knocked him on it. And then I'm watching him play going, he's got a really good arm. Like he has legitimate arm strength. Like I'm not saying he's Josh Allen or Brett Favre, but he's definitely not, I don't know, Dak Prescott or an Alex Smith. Like he has a strong arm. And all Sean Payton has reiterated over and over, and everyone that knows him or has followed his career is like he wants a quarterback to get rid of the ball really quickly. And on the touchdown pass, that ball hit Bo Nix's hands and was in the wide receivers, basically right in the corner of the front of the end zone before you could even snap a finger. It was like, whoa. And it was the ball placement, the getting rid of the ball, the arm strength. Obviously, he made other throws on the move. His athleticism, like Jayden, like Caleb, like JJ McCarthy, enormous plus. I mean, they schemed just a run play for him that picked up a first down. They had another kind of busted pass that he scrambled around. You just go, holy shit, this guy has a lot of talent. And there are a lot of naysayers. Feels like a lot of people want to hate this guy. I don't know why. I'm kind of indifferent. I wasn't pro the guy, wasn't anti the guy. I watched him at Oregon, thought he was a solid player. Watched him for the Denver Broncos. I thought his arm strength was even more eye opening than I ever thought in college. And what Sean Payton's going to want them to do, they got all these big body wide receivers. He can also run a natural at it, like it's something that comes instinctive to him. He's not going to play hero ball. I, I don't know how it could have gone much better. I really don't. I mean, this is what I'm saying. This class, I think if we look back on the class of 21, which is an utter embarrassment, it really is. Also understandable. The vid happened. BYU schedule was a joke. Trey Lance didn't play. Mac Jones. Turns out Alabama was like, I'll tell the story one day, but it wasn't a fair fight. And Justin Fields and the Big Ten wanted to cancel football. Kevin Warren, that loser. So I don't know what to say. It's not comparable class. This one's way better, but these guys' resumes are a lot longer than those guys, right? I mean, we got multiple Heisman Trophy winners. We got Michael Penix, who dominated college football for 2 years. JJ McCarthy, 2-year starter on one of the best teams in college football, national championship, beats Bama at the Rose Bowl in an incredible come-from-behind victory. And Bo Nix resurrected his career these last 2 years on Oregon, who was a top 10 program. I mean, all these guys were playing the best of the best and thriving. So you see their skills, especially Nix, McCarthy, Penix, Jayden, and Caleb, just on full display. Like what they did in college, their strengths are going to translate. And the only way you can get comfortable, and some of these guys are going to have the capability, is to me by playing. The only when people ask me, I'm going to start a podcast. What can I do? Start podcasting. Start figuring it out. Start doing it. You're going to go into sales. Start making sales calls. Start making some cold calls. Start figuring out how to close a deal. Because you can watch as many TED Talks and YouTube videos, and you can study in the quarterback room for hours upon hours watching film. But until you're out on the field against other teams, there's no way to get better consistently and make big improvements. You can tell me the mental game, and coaches will push back on this in practice. Bullshit. These practices, no one gets fucking touched. They know they cannot get touched. Even these joint practices. The defensive lineman's not tackling the quarterback. There is nothing to replicate that. I saw Sean McVay, who I got to give the Rams a lot of credit. These preseason games, depending on who's playing quarterback, can be a really tough watch. You don't know half the players. It's sloppy football, penalties. It can be just like, why am I doing this? And then you go, well, there's nothing really else on to watch, and it's football, and I love it. And it's like you end up watching most of the game. Sean McVay, and I remember them doing this last year. They might have been doing this for years. They mic him up during the game, and they mic'd him up today, and he was awesome. And you go, yeah, I understand why Amazon offered him $15-16 million a year, because he would have been very, very entertaining. And the one thing you have to do in these preseason games is try to entertain us through the broadcast. You could argue it's less important in the regular season because the game speaks for itself. But in these like you want to keep me, it's easier to keep me, but you want to keep the average consumer, you better entertain them. And that's something every team in the league should be doing. Should be miking up their head coach. And if he's like Sean McVay and if he's the offensive play caller, when they're on defense, have him join the broadcast, who are literally team employees, So there's nothing tough is going to be asked. It's going to be a very easy atmosphere. Sean's cracking jokes. He's talking with that Andrew Whitworth. It was fantastic. Cannot recommend. I would YouTube, type in Sean McVay mic'd up. It was awesome. We make fun of Sirianni a lot. Simply, what does he do? Well, on the 49ers broadcast with Greg Papa, I guess he mentioned, I didn't have access to it. I watched the Titans broadcast, which was actually pretty good. And Greg said Kyle Shanahan's not calling plays. I think Clint Kubiak's with the Saints. I don't know what Kubiak, there's a bunch of Kubiaks, but one of the Kubiaks that's still on the 49ers was Clay Kubiak, I think, was calling plays. They asked Kyle after the game, they said, what was it like not calling plays? And he said he'd never been more bored in his life. Didn't know what to do with his hands. Threw a challenge flag that he said was like kind of kept him in the game. And I say it all the time. And listen, obviously there are CEO head coaches that thrive at it. John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, Dan Campbell has been very successful. But I can't understand young coaches that don't do either. Saleh did this immediately when he got to the Jets. Sirianni's incapable, I guess, of calling plays. They are doing, beside a challenge play and a timeout, no different than you or me. No different. They're just sitting there watching the game. Now, you could argue they have the juice to run the ball here, or let's get Billy out of there. He can't cover 86. Obviously, they can do that. But other than that, they're saying the same things we are. What the hell's going on? How can we not make a tackle? That's all they're doing. Those days are just done. And football used to be a ton of CEO head coaches. And obviously the sport, the financial ramifications were different. If I'm an owner and the going rate for these coaches, I mean, the Andys, the Kyles, the McVays, Belichick and Pete forever. I mean, you're talking $15 to $20 million. Unless you have a resume a mile long, I'm going to need you dictating one of the sides of the ball. Like Mike Vrabel's a good example. Mike, if I'm going to hire you, I would like you to call defense. I want you to be my defensive coordinator as well as the head coach. And if we can graduate out of that eventually, okay. Once you prove, but if I'm going to pay you what the going rate and what you're going to want, 12, 13, 14, $15 million, I don't want you just doing the same thing literally as me up in the box on game day. I don't think that's too much to ask. I really don't. And I think Kyle, tongue in cheek, by saying he was bored, I can kind of shed some light. Like, at least you know what John Harbaugh does. His leadership and his side works. Same with Jim, right? And Bill for a long period of time. It works. Most of these guys, when it's not working, it's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I don't know, man. So fun times in the preseason.